The cardio debate. Which form of cardio should you be doing? Man, I've been wanting to do this. I've been wanting to do this video for a while now, and I think the time has finally arrived. So what I want to do is I want to take a couple of minutes, and all we're going to do is we're going to break down low intensity steady state cardio, or LISS, versus high intensity interval training, or HIIT. And I'm just going to kind of offer up a couple of pros and a couple of cons for each one. By no means is this, intended to be an exhaustive list of either one, but it's just to give you a couple of things to think about. And I'm going to lead off the video by saying this: the form of cardio that is best for you will always be the one that you will actually do. So forget about the pros and forget about the cons. If you don't actually do it, then it's not going to matter. So if you really prefer one over the other, then I would encourage you to do that one. So let's start first with LISS. So low intensity steady state. Couple of pros. Number one, man, it's really, really easy to do, right? I mean, all you're doing is you're getting on a treadmill, you're going for a walk outside, you're on the elliptical, whatever the case may be, and you're just kind of moving along at a pretty easy, light pace. That's really easy. It's easy psychologically, it's easy physiologically, right? It kind of gives your central nervous system a break. That's a big, big pro. Not to mention, you can do other things while you're walking. If you're like on the treadmill, right? You can answer emails, you can get work done. I do that all the time myself. And so that's a big, big pro. The second pro, and this one's a little bit more scientific, is that the research or the science or the evidence or however you want to call it, it's pretty interesting because it actually shows that while you are actually doing LISS, you burn a greater percentage of your calories from your fat stores relative to your glycogen. Glycogen kind of being, the fuel or the carbohydrates that your body has stored up. When you do HIIT, you tend to burn more from glycogen than from fat. So you're kind of thinking about that, you're like, wow, that's amazing, right? Like, I'm going to actually burn a greater percentage from fat than glycogen. Wouldn't everybody want to do that? Well, yeah, I mean, that's a big, big pro to LISS. I mean, this is where you get that whole phrase, the fat burning zone. That's where this whole idea kind of got coined from. So flipping over to the cons. On the con side of LISS, sometimes, man, you've got to allocate a huge chunk of time to get this cardio done, right? To burn the necessary amount of calories, to burn the necessary amount of fat, you may have to invest 30, 45, 60, 75 minutes per day or 4 or 5 times a week in order to create the deficit that is necessary to reach your goals. That's a big, big con. Second con, and this one, again, kind of sticking with the theme of one that's maybe less scientific and one that's kind of more scientific, is when you do LISS, your body's smart, man. Your body's really smart. It's way smarter than you are, even though you and your body's kind of the same thing. Your body is very, very intelligent. And so what it's going to do is it is going to quickly adapt to whatever you're doing, and it's going to make that your new baseline of progress for wherever you're trying to push your body to next, right? That's a very generic way of stating, a pretty obvious thing that's applicable to anything within fitness. But with low intensity steady state cardio specifically, your body tends to adapt to whatever you're doing very, very quickly. And this isn't even, I don't even want to necessarily get into the fact that your cortisol levels can spike, your HGH levels can plummet, and there are all kinds of negative hormonal adaptations that come with doing a lot of low intensity steady state. Maybe we'll get into that in like a separate video. But I just want to keep this a little bit more practical, a little bit more pragmatic. If you're doing 45 minutes of LISS, eventually, within a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever the case may be, you're going to have to up that to 50 or 60 or 70 or something of that nature in order to continue to progress. And so that is a big, big con. And then, you pair that with, if you're in a fat loss phase, you pair that with really low calories And now you potentially put yourself into a really dangerous spot where you're doing a lot of cardio, your calories are super, super low, and then you have a recipe for metabolic damage. And that can be really, really, really hard to repair. I know this both intellectually and I know this, unfortunately, firsthand. So that's kind of LISS. So let's do the same thing for HIIT. Right? Let's work through a couple of pros. Let's work through a couple of cons. So the first pro is it doesn't take a whole lot of time. You can knock out all of your intervals, whether it be 6 or 8 or 10 or whatever the case may be. You can plow through those guys in 10, 12, 15 minutes, right? I mean, that's a fraction of the time that you would have to invest in a low intensity steady state session. That's a big, big pro. But the second pro, a little bit more scientific, is a couple of things. Number one, you guys may have heard of EPOC, which is kind of a weird acronym because they've kind of messed up the ordering of the letters, because it actually stands for post energy oxygen consumption. So it really should be POC, but it's EPOC. If you Google POC, you're not going to find what you're actually looking for. But if you Google EPOC, you will find post-exercise oxygen consumption. And this is the idea that after you do an interval training session, yes, you burn more from glycogen in that session, but afterwards, you turn your body into this, kind of calorie burning, fat burning machine, more so than you do with low intensity steady state. So it's as if your metabolic rate or your metabolism kicks up after HIIT, whereas you don't get that benefit after LISS. And so that's a huge, huge benefit. But the second scientific thing that I'm kind of tossing in to the same bucket is high intensity interval training improves your insulin sensitivity. Now I want to do a whole video, or maybe even a little series on insulin actually, because it's very, very important to understand how this hormone works within your body. But insulin sensitivity is very, very simple, right? Insulin is a hormone that shuttles nutrients throughout your body. So you may have heard the terms insulin sensitivity and insulin resistance. If your body is very insulin resistant, then your organs and your muscles, they don't welcome that insulin. They don't welcome those nutrients into themselves. And that becomes problematic because you become more prone to store fat because the insulin's got to find a place to put those nutrients. But if you're very insulin sensitive, which HIIT has been shown to improve, now all of a sudden the insulin can more easily take the nutrients into your muscle cells, into your organs, and what have you. So there's less of an opportunity, just speaking in very kind of plain English, there's less of an opportunity for your body to store fat. That's pretty important. But what about the cons of high intensity interval training? Well, they're both kind of the same. And number one, it's very, very taxing. It's very hard to do, right? I mean, when you're going all out like life or death, like really blasting those intervals, even if it's only 10 or 12 or 15 seconds, that takes a lot of energy, man. That takes a lot of psychological energy. That takes a lot of physiological energy. That can really tax your central nervous system. That can really, make you more prone to injury. That can really just wear your system down, not unlike, really, really hard weight training sessions. And the second con is it's not suitable for everyone, which is very similar to the first con. But in this regard, it's like if you're a beginner, right? If you're just starting out, then man, you got to get in there. You got to get something done. But is HIIT training going to be the best option for you? Maybe not. Because if you're really untrained, then, your risk of injury and your risk of really getting super duper fatigued or burned out or whatever right out of the gates might be really, really high. It kind of depends on what kind of person you are and kind of what you prefer to do. And so there's, 8-10 minutes about pros and cons, LISS versus HIIT. This is a video I've been wanting to do for a while. There you go. I finally did it. So which one should you do? Again, man, it's going to be the one that you're actually going to do. Throw the pros and the cons out the window, man. It doesn't matter. If you're not going to do it, it doesn't make a difference. But if you really like LISS, then you've got some things working for you. You've got some things working against you too. But if you really like HIIT, you've got some things working for you. You've got some things working against you. What do? I do a combination of both, actually. I do HIIT and LISS. When I'm in the off season and I don't have a whole lot of time to allocate to my training, I pretty much only do HIIT. But when it comes time to really get serious about fat loss, I like kind of grabbing from both buckets and utilizing the benefits of both. because I can do my HIIT sessions, which kick up my metabolism. I get the EPOC or the POC and the insulin changes or insulin sensitivity changes and all that stuff. But then I also turn around and I do a couple of LISS sessions per week, which allow me to burn a few extra calories, burn more from fat during the actual activity. You know, it's easy on my system, psychologically, physiologically, all that stuff. So that's it, man. I hope that was really helpful for you guys. Don't forget, you guys can always follow me on social media at jschultzf3, Twitter, Instagram. You can email me, jschultzf3@gmail.com. You could subscribe to the YouTube channel. That would be phenomenal. And yeah, all the above would be terrific. So we'll see you guys next time.